Chapter 2. The Gilded Cage. The private elevator opened directly into the penthouse, revealing a space so vast and opulent it stole Evie's breath. Floor saw ceiling windows wrapped around a sprawling living area, offering a godlike panorama of the city lights, glittering like a carpet of fallen stars. Polished marble floors gleamed under recessed lighting, reflecting Milagrese's furniture that probably cost more than her entire education. It was breathtaking. It was a prison. Damien stepped out behind her, dropping a heavy canvas duffel bag on the pristine white rug with a thud that made Evie flinch. He prowled into the center of the room, his presence immediately dirtying the sterile perfection of the space. His worn leather jacket and combat boots were an open act of rebellion against the courtier luxury. "Nice cage," he grunted, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous room. He ran a hand through his unruly dark hair, his stormy gray eyes scanning the area not with appreciation, but with the cold tactical assessment of a predator mapping out new territory. "Wonder how many bugs our own people planted, and how many are Crufts." The thought had already crossed Evie's mind. This entire setup was a test. Every word, every gesture, was a performance for an unseen audience. "We assume both," she said, setting her own neatly packed suitcase down with deliberate care. "Which means from this moment on, we are Isabel and Alexander Blackwood, a devoted couple, completely in love." Damien turned, a slow, wolfish grin spreading across his face. It was the same infuriating smirk from the briefing room, but here, in the forced intimacy of their new home, it felt 1,000 times more dangerous. "In love, huh? Great. You can start by adoringly unpacking my things, Izzy." Evie's jaw tightened. "The first name on my analysis of your psychological profile, Agent Cross, is narcissism, followed closely by an infantile need for antagonism. I'll be sure to add it to the Alexander Blackwood legend. It'll make her boorishness seem like a character choice." He chuckled, a low, gravelly sound that vibrated through the floor. "See? You're a natural at the whole loving wife thing." He ignored her and stalked toward the hallway. "Let's see the damage." Evie followed, her sensible heels clicking nervously on the marble. There was only one door at the end of the hall. He pushed it open. The master bedroom was even more extravagant than the living area. A king-sized bed, draped in what looked like 1,000-thread-count duvet, dominated the room. More windows offered a stunning nighttime view. A sleek, modern fireplace was set into one wall, and an adjoining door led to a bathroom that looked like a private spa. One bed, the reality of it slammed into her. This wasn't an abstract on a floor plan anymore. This was a physical space she had to share with this insufferable, chaotic man. "Well, well," Damien said, his voice laced with mocking amusement. He tossed his jacket onto the bed, a proprietary gesture that set Evie's teeth on edge. "Looks like the agency is really invested in our marital bliss." "I'll take the couch in the living room," she stated, her voice clipped. It was the only logical solution. He turned to face her, leaning back against the doorframe, crossing his powerful arms over his chest. The movement stretched the dark fabric of his shirt, emphasizing the hard planes of muscle. "No, you won't." A newlywed wife sleeping on the couch? Crop's a paranoid bastard, but he's not an idiot. He'd have eyes on this building before we were even assigned. He'd be looking for any crack in the FUD. A separate bed is a crack. A separate room is a canyon. You sleep in here. Panic, cold and sharp, pricked at her composure. "And you?" His smirk widened. "I sleep in here too, darling. It's a big bed. I'm sure a by-the-book analyst like you can draw up a schematic for a pillow wall if it makes you feel safer." His gaze dropped, a deliberate lingering look at her mouth before flicking back up to her eyes. "Unless you're worried you won't be able to control yourself." The insinuation was so blatant, so designed to provoke and belittle her that for a moment Evie was speechless. He saw her as a bundle of nerves, a frigid academic he could easily fluster. He was targeting her composure, her professionalism, the very thing she used as armor. The memory of his words in the briefing room, wound tighter than a watch spring, echoed in her ears. She drew in a slow, calming breath, pushing her glasses up her nose. The familiar gesture centered her. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, devoid of the anger he so clearly wanted, and sharp as flaked obsidian. Agent Cross, she began, her tone analytical as if she were dissecting a specimen. You operate under the assumption that your crude provocations are a sign of strength. They're not. They're a defense mechanism, a very loud, very simple one. She took a step closer, forcing him to meet her gaze on an even level. He hadn't expected her to advance. His smirk faltered. You use intimidation because it's the only language you're fluent in. It must be terrifying, living in a world where your only tool is a hammer and everything looks like a nail. I'm not worried about controlling myself. Her eyes were unwavering. I'm worried your twi-dimensional thinking will miss the nuance that's required to keep us alive. My mind designed the lock to get us inside Croft's world. Your job is to be the key. So please, she finished, her voice dropping to an almost conspiratorial whisper, try not to just smash the door down on your way in. Some of us are trying to be subtle. Silence. The air in the room became thick, heavy, and still. Damien's arrogance finally cracked. For a fraction of a second, his piercing gray eyes were stripped of their mockery, revealing a flicker of raw shock. She had seen past the brute and pointed out the gears, and he was utterly, completely stunned. The power dynamic in the room didn't just shift, it inverted with a silent, seismic jolt. He wasn't looking at a nerdy analyst anymore, he was looking at an equal. Before he could recover, before he could formulate a retort, a soft chime echoed from the living room. Both of them snapped out of their stand-off, the spell broken. The sound was from the encrypted tablet their handler had given them, an alert, a new communication. They moved in unison, their personal war instantly deferred by the primacy of the mission. Reed reached the tablet first, her fingers flying across the screen to enter the tau-topsing key. Damien stood behind her, his heat a familiar, unsettling presence at her back, but the taunting energy was gone, replaced by a tense, shared focus. An image resolved on the screen. It was an invitation, rendered in elegant gold calligraphy on a black background. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood, it would be my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the city at my annual Foundation Gala. Julian Croft. Beneath the text was a date, 2 days from now. Evie looked up from the tablet, her eyes meeting Damien's. The animosity was still there, a low-burning fire between them, but now something new was mixed in with it, a grudging, dangerous respect. The Gilded Cage had just opened, offering them their first dance with the devil.